It was early spring when he sat down across from me, shoulders hunched, hands folded neatly like a man still trying to hold himself together. He'd been married for 31 years. She was his first love, high school sweethearts. Built a life, raised 2 kids, stood beside each other through layoffs, cancer scares, and the long, slow fading of their parents. And now at 66 she was gone. Not in a way that drew headlines or sympathy cards. She didn't storm out, didn't scream. She simply withdrew, quietly, without a scandal, without blame. And then one day she packed 2 bags and left a note that said, "I can't do this anymore. I don't feel it." He looked up at me, eyes not angry, just hollow. "Doc," he said, "I did everything right. I never cheated. I worked every day. I gave her everything I had. How does this happen?" I've heard that question too many times to count. I'm Dr. Thomas Leighton, and if you're a man over 60 or even somewhere near that season of life, I need to tell you something. I've come to believe deeply, not just as a doctor, but as a man who's listened to hundreds of others in your shoes. Women don't leave you because you failed. They leave because something inside them stopped feeling, and most men never saw it coming. You might have given her your strength, your patience, your loyalty. You may have stayed quiet during arguments, bought flowers, made coffee every morning. You were responsible, consistent, reliable, all the things a good man is supposed to be. And still, she walked away. Not with a slam, but with silence. And in that silence, a question begins to haunt you. Wasn't I enough? If this message speaks to something buried deep in your own story, type 1. If you're still unsure, type 0. Either way, thank you for listening. See, here's something I've learned not from textbooks, but from sitting across from men just like you. Women don't stay loyal to the list of things you do. They stay loyal to how they feel when they're around you. That's the part most of us were never taught. You thought she would remember all the things you did, the anniversaries, the long hours at work, the way you supported her when she was sick. And for a while she did. She meant it when she said, "I'll always love you." She wasn't lying. But a woman's love is emotional, not contractual. She doesn't live in the memory of what you gave. She lives in the feeling of what you make her feel right now in this moment. And if that feeling disappears, if the energy between you starts to fade, if she begins to feel more alone beside you than she ever did on her own, that's when things start to unravel quietly and visibly. Not because you changed, but because you stopped being present in a way she could feel. I remember a man named Samuel, quiet, generous, loyal. He'd built his entire life around doing right. He provided, he protected, he didn't raise his voice. He believed the way most of us were taught that love was something you built with patience and effort. And he wasn't wrong, but he was missing one piece. She didn't leave because he stopped trying. She left because she stopped feeling alive when he was in the room. And that's the piece no one tells us. Women aren't loyal to the checklist. They're loyal to a feeling state, a connection that breathes, not just exists. That doesn't mean they're ungrateful. It means they're emotional. And emotion isn't logical. It doesn't measure effort. It moves like wind through an open window. And when it's gone, she feels it first. The most painful part: the more a man tries to fix this by doing more, the more disconnected he becomes from himself. And the more she feels that even if she can't put it into words. I've seen men who become smaller versions of themselves trying not to lose her. Softer, more agreeable, less opinionated. They silence their truth in exchange for peace. But peace without presence is just distance. And distance for a woman feels like abandonment even when you're still physically there. I want to say this to you as clearly as I can. The thing that kept her close wasn't just your effort. It was your aliveness, your spark, your groundedness, your emotional weight. That's what she connected to in the beginning. And when that fades, no amount of sacrifice can replace it. If any part of this is stirring something in you, not guilt, not shame, but a quiet knowing, just take a moment, breathe, because there's no shame in being a good man who gave everything, but lost touch with the one thing she needed most, your presence. Let's keep walking together gently, honestly, because where we're headed now is the part no one warns us about. You start to notice the change. Not in words, she still smiles, still asks how your day went, but something's missing. She laughs less, touches you less. Her eyes, once lit with softness, now seem distant, like they're looking at someone else or no one at all. And you think I just need to try harder. So you do. You pick up more chores, you bring home small gifts, you stay quiet when things bother you, you accommodate her moods, you try not to cause any waves, and without realizing it, you start fading. Not in her eyes, but in your own reflection. You become agreeable, predictable, gentle to a fault. And slowly, painfully, she stops feeling what she used to feel with you. Not because you're wrong, not because you're weak, but because in your effort to hold on to her you let go of yourself. I've seen it again and again. Men who once had fire in their eyes, who once knew where they stood. They start to bend, shrink, appease, and in doing so they lose the very edge that once made her feel alive beside them. She didn't fall for the man who avoided conflict. She fell for the man who had conviction. She didn't fall in love with silence. She fell in love with presence, even when it had rough edges. I once had a patient, Michael, a retired engineer, precise, polite, the kind of man who lived by logic and routine. His wife left him at 62. He brought me a folder with charts of everything he'd done for her vacations, gifts, anniversaries, even a list of times he cooked dinner. But what broke my heart was this. He said I gave her everything. I never got angry. I never said no. And I told him what I'll tell you now. Sometimes never saying no is the same as never showing up. She didn't leave because he failed her. She left because she couldn't feel him anymore. And that's the tragedy, isn't it? The very effort we make to keep love can become the reason it slips away. Because women, especially after a lifetime of giving and caretaking, don't stay where they feel served. They stay where they feel stirred. And I know that may sound cruel. It's not meant to be. It's simply this: a woman doesn't need you to flatten yourself for her comfort. She needs to feel your center, your stillness, your no's just as much as your yeses. Because without that, she doesn't feel held, she feels lost. Now, I want to talk to you about something else. It's subtle, quiet, and devastating when it sets in. It's the mistake of clinging to promises from the past, while ignoring the emotions of the present. I've sat with men, strong men, who replayed her old words like sacred scriptures. I'll always love you. You're the only one for me. And they hold on to those phrases like anchors, as if those words once said should last forever. But here's the thing. A woman's emotions are honest, but they are not permanent. When she told you she'd never leave, she meant it. Her eyes didn't lie. But emotions aren't contracts. They are currents. They move, they shift, they change with time, circumstance, and energy. That doesn't make her cruel. It makes her human. And the moment you start quoting yesterday's promises to explain today's pain, you lose touch with the truth of what's happening now. I know that's hard to accept. It feels unfair, like love should count for more than that. But the heart doesn't live in memory, it lives in feeling. And if you try to make her stay by reminding her of who she once was, you may miss the reality that she's no longer that woman. I remember sitting with a man who said, "But she said I was her forever." I looked at him and all I could say was this: she did. And in that moment it was true. But now she's in a different moment. And the question is not, how do I get her back? It's, how do I come back to myself? Because here's the quiet truth no one tells men. Giving everything isn't the same as being everything. You can love deeply, give generously, sacrifice endlessly, and still feel invisible. Why? Because when you focus all your energy on keeping someone else happy, you may stop asking if you are still whole. And when a woman senses that you've abandoned yourself, she can't trust the relationship anymore. Not because she wants more from you, but because she can no longer feel you. Let me say that again. She didn't stop loving you because you changed. She stopped feeling safe with you because you stopped being fully present. And no checklist, no memory, no apology can replace presence. What she felt when she first fell in love wasn't just attraction, it was gravity. That quiet sense that next to you she could rest, be small, be open, be vulnerable without disappearing. And when you stop holding that gravity, not by force but by being, she drifts. Not out of betrayal, but out of emotional necessity. So if you're sitting here today wondering why she left, I want you to hear this not with your mind, but with your heart. You didn't fail, you didn't love wrong, but somewhere along the way, you forgot to include yourself in the love. And now the way forward isn't fixing the past, it's coming home to you. If you're finding something true in this, or even something you're not ready to name yet, consider subscribing. Not because I have the answers, but because I've walked beside enough men to know. This pain doesn't have to be the end of your story. And now let me tell you something I've learned not from clinics or journals, but from the quiet private moments when a man finally says what he's been afraid to admit. It's this: you can be deeply in love and still disappear inside that love. Not all at once, but gradually. The first time you held back your opinion to avoid conflict. The night you said yes when your gut whispered no. The moment you apologized just to keep the peace, even when you didn't believe you were wrong. Each time you gave away a little part of your edge, your truth, your masculine core. And here's the painful twist: the more you soften yourself to avoid losing her, the more she feels like she's losing you. Because a woman doesn't want endless agreement. She wants presence, structure, a man who stands in his truth, lovingly but firmly. Not to dominate, but to hold space, to steady the boat when waters get rough. But many men, especially good men, confuse kindness with compliance. They believe love is proven by how much they yield. But love, real love, doesn't ask you to flatten yourself. It asks you to stay grounded. There's a man I once knew, Richard, ex-fireman, strong build, soft voice. He told me I stopped standing up for anything. I thought if I just stayed calm, she'd feel safe. But one day she told him, "You're always calm, but I don't feel you anymore." That broke something in him. And what he learned slowly is what I hope you take from this. A woman doesn't just need to be loved. She needs to feel your weight. Not physical weight, but emotional gravity. That solid sense of you, the part that doesn't vanish under pressure. You don't need to raise your voice, but you do need to have one. Because if you keep adjusting everything just to keep her close, you might wake up and realize she's still there, but you're the one who left. Left yourself, your truth, your fire. And when a woman senses that absence, even if she doesn't say it aloud, she begins to grieve. Not for what you've done, but for what's no longer alive in you. Now I'm not here to give you tactics. I won't tell you to buy flowers or text more or plan surprise dates. Those things are fine, but they are only gestures. What matters is energy, that quiet, steady current of your presence. Do you still have opinions? Do you still have boundaries? Do you speak from your belly, not just your brain? Because that's what she remembers. Not what you said, not what you bought, but how she felt when you walked into the room. Did her shoulders drop? Did she feel safer? Did she feel more herself? Because you were being more yourself. And if the answer is no, if you've spent the last months or years giving so much that you forgot to stay centered, then I want to offer you this. It's not too late to come back, not necessarily to her, but to you. To that quiet strength inside, the one you set aside in the name of love. To the version of yourself who didn't perform, but stood still. Because the truth is, when a woman says you've changed, what she often means is, you've stopped being the man I first felt safe with, and that man, he's still in there. You may not feel him every day, but he never left. He's waiting not for her to return, but for you to return to yourself. I once met a man late 60s, divorced after 40 years of marriage. He told me he spent the first year trying to win her back. Flowers, messages, therapy, pleading. But then one day, standing in front of the bathroom mirror, he whispered, "Maybe I've been trying to get her to see me because I stopped seeing myself." And that was his turning point. He didn't become bitter. He didn't shut down. He started walking again, started painting again. He laughed more. He said no more often. He didn't become better. He became real again. And months later, his ex-wife said something unexpected. "I see the man I fell in love with, standing up again." They didn't get back together, but she hugged him, and he said that moment felt like peace. Not victory, not regret, just peace. So if you're listening to this now, maybe you're still in the marriage, maybe she's already gone, or maybe you're standing in the middle, unsure which way the tide is turning. Wherever you are, I want to remind you of this. You don't need to perform for love. You need to be present in love. The most magnetic part of you was never what you gave. It was the space you held. That stillness, that strength, that calm edge that made her feel, with this man I can finally exhale. And if you've lost that, not forever, just gently return. Not to her, but to you. The world doesn't need more men who try harder. It needs more men who stand true. Men who love with full hearts but never empty themselves to be loved in return. So tomorrow, when you look in the mirror, don't ask, "How do I get her back?" Ask, "Am I back?" Because when you are, everything changes. And if this message touched something in you, don't keep it loud. Don't post it wide. Just share it quietly with someone who might understand. Like all things men do best, heart to heart, in trust and in truth.